Welcome everyone to the Thursday edition of our Packers News live chat alongside Tom Silverstein. I am Olivia Reiner. The Packers hit the field one final time for practice, gearing up for this weekend's playoff game against the Los Angeles Rams. We'll bring you a COVID-19 update on Jared Veldheer, plus we'll also look at the Rams offense today. Before we get into that, as always, you know the drill. We want you to be a part of our conversation. If you're over on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube, leave us a question down in the chat. Do not be a silent viewer. Don't be a lurker. We know you have lots on your mind. Tom and I will get to some of your thoughts toward the end of our conversation today. Tackle Jared Veldheer was placed on COVID-19 reserve yesterday after testing positive for COVID-19. At the time, the Packers did not identify any other high-risk close contacts. Today, everyone participated in practice, indicating that no one else has tested positive for COVID-19. How close are the Packers to being in the clear?
Well, I honestly don't think we'll know that till Saturday. It's a good sign that nobody else tested positive, but sometimes the infection rate can take a few days, and so they'll hold their breath. They'll hold their breath every night, just like they held their breath last night. I can only imagine what it was like to, after having only two guys test positive the entire year, and they pick up a guy, and just like that, he's positive, and they're probably like, why did we do this? But they've been really good with their protocols and masking and 6 feet away, and they deemed that there were no close contacts. That's usually that can be the most debilitating, because then you lose guys who might not be positive, and they're out and they can't play. So so far so good.
We'll keep you updated over on PackersNews.com if there are any other COVID-19 related updates. In injury news, the biggest question surrounding the Rams this upcoming weekend was who was going to start at quarterback. Both Jared Goff and John Wolford had been dealing with their own injuries. Goff, a right thumb, Wolford with a stinger. Today, that got a lot clearer. Wolford has been ruled out with the stinger. He will not start. That means that Jared Goff will start. How does that impact the Packers' defensive game plan this weekend?
Well, I would guess that they prepared for Jared Goff. I mean, he was a full participant in practice all the way through, and Wolford wasn't. And I think they had to keep in their back pocket some plan for Wolford and his scrambling ability. Jared Goff's not going to run on you very much, but Wolford could. So I think they had to at least address that part and ready their game plan for an adjustment. But I would say that mostly they expected Jared Goff. And in the Rams system, you're playing the system as much as you're playing the quarterback. And, with Goff, it may be how Pettine calls the game more so than how they design the game plan. Does he feel like he can blitz Jared Goff more than he can Wolford because he's kind of a statue and he's got a bad thumb, and maybe they feel like they can get more interceptions that way? So I don't think it's a huge factor.
A lot of the attention heading into this weekend's game has been on the Rams' #1 scoring defense, and for a good reason. What's taken a backseat is the Rams' passing offense. They're not as much to write home about when you compare them to the Rams defense. They're 13th in points, and 13th in passing yards and 26th in passing touchdowns. The bulk of the targets go to wide receivers Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. How can the Packers potentially exploit the Rams passing game this upcoming weekend?
Well, the biggest difference between Matt LaFleur's offense and Sean McVay's is that Matt LaFleur has a running back. I mean, a dangerous running back. And so his play action is really honored, because you have to stop Aaron Jones. With the Rams, Cam Akers got 143 yards against the Seahawks, but he had to work for all of that. I mean, I think he averaged like 4.3 yards per carry, and usually on a 143-yard day, you usually have a long run out of there somewhere, and he didn't. And I think that's where the Packers will have some advantage, is that maybe they can rush their normal amount of guys. They don't have to bring a guy up in the box, and they can worry about the wide receivers. But again, if Cooper Kupp isn't 100%, then there's a lot of options. The Rams passed a lot this year. I mean, they were way above 50%, almost 600 attempts. So it's usually a sign of a team that's not quite doing as well. And so I think the Packers can count on them passing a lot.
Running back Cam Akers has really come on in the second half of the season. Tom, as you mentioned, Akers had a pretty explosive day against the Seattle Seahawks, not only on the ground, but also through the air as well. He had 28 carries, 131 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. Through the air, he was only targeted twice, had 2 receptions. However, he had 45 receiving yards. How prepared is the Packers' run defense to attack Cam Akers?
I think they're in pretty good shape. Now, the Rams' offensive line is really good. It's a veteran line where it's big. Their tackles are really big. They got 2 Wisconsin kids, David Edwards at left guard and Rob Havenstein at right tackle, and then Andrew Whitworth is 330-pound left tackle who's been around forever. And they just get teams moved. They find a way. They're athletic. They're smart. And, if you don't find a way to kind of stymie them, to get them from coming off their double teams and getting to your linebackers, then you could be in for a long day. But I do think with Kenny Clark and then maybe with the addition of Harrison, and if Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith are playing discipline, then I think they can shut them down.
Let's head over to Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube for some of your questions. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. It is delightful to see all of you. Let's go over to Pack Attack on YouTube. They want to know, do you think the Packers maybe are saving running back A.J. Dillon until today to unleash him? This seems like a good game to run him and Aaron Jones. A.J. Dillon had a huge day against the Tennessee Titans in Week 16 that resulted in his first pair of touchdowns in the NFL. The following week, the Packers offense was only able to run 44 plays, and one of those plays, just one, was handing the ball off to A.J. Dillon for 3 yards. How does head coach Matt LaFleur plan on using Dillon and the running backs this upcoming weekend?
Hard to say. I still think in the playoffs, you want your most experienced guys to handle the ball, and you want Aaron Jones. You want the ball in Aaron Jones's hands as often as possible. And, it's a playoff game. You're not playing for 3 weeks down the road. You got to win, and they're gonna give Aaron Jones the bulk of the reps. Now, if late in the game Aaron Jones has had a lot of reps or they're not getting anywhere, maybe they do fit Dillon in there, or maybe they run Dillon and Aaron Jones together. But I think it's going to be sort of a rotation between Jamal Williams and A.J. Dillon. Aaron Jones, he's going to see the bulk of the snaps, and then we'll see how they kind of put Williams and Dillon in. But Jamal Williams is a terrific pass blocker, so you want him in the game at times too. A.J. Dillon hasn't proven himself there. They're going to have to throw the ball some to win. So
Matt LaFleur certainly has his options at running back. We will see how he decides to use all 3 of them this weekend. Thanks so much, Pack Attack, for your question. Let's go over to Facebook. A question here from Amma. They want to know, any idea how the Packers' offensive line will line up this Saturday? The Packers picked up tackle Jared Veldheer just a couple of days ago with the intention of having him as depth and possibly an option at left tackle, with David Bakhtiari out with an ACL tear for the rest of the season. Now the Packers may be forced to go back to their previous lineup, which involved keeping Rick Wagner at right tackle and starting Billy Turner at left tackle. How likely is it that they continue to move forward with that offensive line?
Yeah, they have to. They have no other choice. I think the way Billy Turner talked today, he sort of talked about how he came in and he wasn't sure where he was going to be this week. But he has to play left tackle. They don't have anyone else. Rick Wagner has to play right tackle. They don't have anyone else. Where they're going to run into trouble is if one of those guys get hurt. If one of them does, then Elton Jenkins will move to tackle, and they'll bring John Runyon in at guard. But for right now, it's going to be Billy Turner at left tackle, Elton Jenkins at left guard, Lindsley at center, Lucas Patrick at right guard, and Rick Wagner at right tackle. And they really need Rick Wagner to hold up through this game. That's going to be a big key.
Thanks so much, Amma, for your question. Let's continue over on Facebook to Jordan. Jordan wants to know if wide receiver Marquez Valdes-Scantling becomes super important, being that most coverage attention will be followed over to Packers wide receiver Davante Adams. Valdes-Scantling is averaging roughly 20 yards per catch this season and could potentially be open if the Rams secondary chooses to put a little bit more attention over to Davante Adams. How likely is it that Valdes-Scantling has a little bit more of a big day because Adams may be getting more attention?
I don't know. Here's the thing. With the Rams, you don't have a whole lot of time to hold onto the ball and wait for a guy to get open deep or run a complicated route, that double move kind of thing. I mean, maybe if they just run them straight down the field, Rodgers can do it, but you got to be so conscious of Aaron Donald coming right up the middle, and Leonard Floyd too coming off the edge, and they just have a good, solid. Morgan Fox been a good pass rusher. I don't know how much time Rodgers is going to have, and it would sort of, to me, it would shift. In my estimation, it would shift the emphasis more towards a guy like Alan Lazard, who you're going to want to get the ball out quick, and you're going to want to hit some guys who can get some yards after the catch. Maybe Equanimeous St. Brown gets a few more. I think it's those type of guys' game. I could be wrong about that. We'll see. But I just know if Aaron Donald is getting after you and that defensive line is, you're not going to have a lot of time to wait for Valdes-Scantling to get deep.
Thanks, Jordan, for your question. Certainly something interesting to keep in mind this weekend. Let's go over to Southwest Florida Packers Fan Club over on Facebook. They want to know if we expect the Packers to play more play action pass, since the Rams defense ranks dead last in stopping it. From the day that Matt LaFleur arrived in Green Bay, he has voiced over and over again the importance of play action and running it well, marrying the run and the pass. How important is play action going to be going up against this Rams defense?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, you've got to find a way to slow them down. Play action and screen passes. But, the thing with the Rams that makes it so difficult to move the ball on them is that they can rush four guys and they can still get a really good pass rush. They don't have to bring an extra guy in the box. They don't have to blitz all that much. They can drop seven guys into coverage. And so play action is not going to have that much effect if they're not up, playing the run. If they're not bringing a safety up, then play action won't have as much impact. But if they do, it could be a big part of the game. I really think that the Rams are going to sit back in two-shell coverage with both safeties back, and it's going to be up to the Packers to run the ball. Ultimately, play action doesn't work unless you do run the ball, and I would not be surprised if they come out running it, maybe right at Aaron Donald, just see if his rib is hurting him or affecting his play.
Speaking of running the ball, let's go back over to Jordan on Facebook. Jordan asks, at this point in the season, do you think the Packers let Aaron Jones to get more snaps? The narrative, keep him fresh, is old right now. It's lose or go home. If you look at Aaron Jones' touches over the last several games, against Chicago, only 11 carries. Tennessee, only 10 carries. We know A.J. Dillon had a big game that day. Carolina was his busiest game on the ground, where he carried the ball 20 times, his highest number of touches this season on the ground. How much more do you anticipate the Packers riding Aaron Jones, given the fact that it is win or go home?
Well, again, it's going to be how the Rams play him, but as I said in the early part, he's going to play a lot. He's going to be on the field the majority of the time. I don't think you even mess around. He'll get a series off or here and a series off there, but you want Aaron Jones on the field as much as possible. So I agree. Now, I don't know if that translates into 20 carries. It just kind of depends how the game goes. He was on the field a lot for Chicago, but like you said, they only had 44 plays. And then Carolina was playing this pass defense, this really soft pass defense where they were just begging the Packers to run. So we got 20 carries. So it kind of depends on how the Rams play them.
Thanks so much again, Jordan, for your question. Let's go over to Frank on Facebook. Frank says that everyone's talking about the Packers offense versus the Rams defense. However, how do we like the Packers defense in this matchup? The Packers defense has improved immensely over the past several games, especially in the red zone. They're, I believe, 8th all season in the red zone when it comes to allowing opposing teams to score. However, they're number 1, only allowing opposing teams to score on 20% of the last 3 games of 20% of opposing teams' trips to the red zone over the last 3 games. How do you anticipate the Packers defense holding up this upcoming weekend against the Rams?
Well, I like their chances. I think with an injured Jared Goff and they weren't playing that well anyways, the Packers can handle their receivers. Cooper Kupp would be someone that would scare you because, you're not going to put Jair Alexander on him because he lines up in the slot. Jair Alexander's not a slot corner. So Jair Alexander will probably line up on, who's our receivers? So Josh Reynolds is the big receiver, and Robert Woods. I'm sorry, just having a brain fart there. Alexander will probably be there, and then Josh Reynolds, probably Kevin King will be a lot on him. So I would look for, them to see how Cooper Kupp's doing and try to get him matched up on. Well, he'll be matched up on Chandon Sullivan, and really, I still think the Packers can defend this pass game, and they need to get after Goff, and they need to harass him. They don't have to tackle him, but harass him and make him throw on different arm angles so that he puts pressure on that thumb.
Thank you so much for your question, Frank. We appreciate it. Let's go over to John Wayne over on YouTube. John asks, with all of the vacant general manager spots, why isn't former Packers director of football operations Elliot Wolf and son of former general manager Ron Wolf being considered for any open GM positions? Tom, why is it that Wolf is currently a front office consultant over with the New England Patriots? Why isn't Wolf being considered for more general manager positions?
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking the same thing today. I had the exact same thought. Like, how does he's got to get his name back out there. He was in a really good position with Green Bay. And now he's kind of, he went to Cleveland, and Cleveland's was a place where, personnel guys go to die because they're so bad for so long. And so he had to take a job with New England, and he's got to, I think he's just going to have to build his status back up. It's going to take some time. He's really young. I mean, he shouldn't be in a hurry. I know he probably really wants a GM job. It may have been better for him to stick around Green Bay if, instead of going to Cleveland. I think he would have gotten more exposure that way, a winning team. But, he'll land somewhere, and then he'll work his way back up. And I think he's too good to not be a general manager someday.
Thank you, John, for your question. Let's take a question here from Levi, who I see Levi asking tons of contract and cap-related questions. Thankfully, we've got Tom with us today, who's got a knack for this stuff. Levi wants to know if Davante Adams' contract extension will happen this offseason to give the team more cap room for 2021. Adams doesn't become a free agent until 2022, I believe. How likely is it that the Packers sign him to a new deal to restructure a little bit and free up some room in 2021?
Yeah, I think we can count on that happening, but I don't know if it's going to happen in March. They may just wait until right before training camp or the season. I don't think you need to be in a big hurry to do that. Like you said, he's under contract next year, and then the year after that. And so, but you got to start thinking about it. And I think we will start to hear some rumblings about it. I mean, he's established himself as probably. I mean, this year he was the best wide receiver in the NFL, and as a whole, he's probably in the top three consistently. So he's kind of outworked his contract. So I do think we'll see something.
Something to certainly keep an eye on heading into this offseason. It's going to be an interesting offseason. Running back Aaron Jones, center Corey Linsley, cornerback Kevin King all become free agents in 2021. However, we're not even thinking that far yet. We still got a game to cover this weekend. Thank you so much, Levi, for your question. And thank all of you for joining us today. I will be live with Pete Doherty before the game on Saturday, so make sure you come over back to Packers News on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube to chat with us. We want to hear from you as always. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, everyone. For Tom Silverstein, I'm Olivia Reiner. We will see you next time.